Welcome back to the Daily Lift. You know what they say, if you don't know your past, you're doomed to repeat it. Usually referring to that we either learn from our history or we're bound to make those same mistakes. But sometimes we want to know our history so that we can repeat it. And the story of Esther is one of these points in history. We learn so much from this historical account of Esther about love and faith, about courage and responsibility, about the importance of heeding wise counsel, and the providence and the power of God. See, Esther was brought up in Babylonian captivity by her cousin Mordecai, and through a series of unusual events, she is selected to be queen of Persia. And then through another series of events, her and the entire Jewish nation's very existence is being threatened. And cousin Mordecai and the Jews that are living in the empire were mourning over this, and they turn to Esther for help. Initially, Esther's hesitant. She was doubting herself. What can I do? I don't have any power or authority. I'm just the queen. She makes excuses. I can't go before the king. The law is if I go before him and not been summoned, he can put me to death. This is when Mordecai steps in and he has a little bit of a pep talk with his cousin. And I believe this is one of the most motivational passages in all of the Bible. And he says in Esther 4:14, do not think in your heart you will escape in the king's palace any more than the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? So there's a lot here, so let's unpack some of it. Mordecai reveals some important truths about the nature of God, that God cares for us and he delivers his people in times of distress, and that he can use anybody or anything to carry out his will, both good or bad. And he also calls us to action. But if we don't respond, he'll use another, because his will is always being carried out perfectly. Then Mordecai says that this may be the very reason that God has blessed her with the talents that she has and the position that she's in. He says, who knows if God has raised you up to be our deliverer? And he challenges her to look past her reservations and her fears and to take some action. So how does Esther handle this? What does she do? Well, she tells Mordecai and all the rest of the Jews in the city to pray and fast for 3 days. And while she and her royal court does the same. And then she devises a plan that does in fact bring justice to the Jewish people and to those who were trying to harm them. And she saves her people from destruction. I want to encourage you to read the story of Esther for yourself. Examine your own life. What have you been put here for at a time like this? How can you contribute to the deliverance of God's people today? And if not you, then who? So I want to encourage you to be courageous today. Include God in your plans. And as always,